Hello and welcome back to Data Analysis and Visualization. I'm Javita Christie, and in this video, we are going to continue with D3.js from the previous video. And here I'm going to explain to you how to create a simple bar chart using SVG, which is Scalable Vector Graphics, and also how to scale those bar charts onto a given canvas width and height. So let's begin. And from the beginning, let me just tell you what I'm using. So I'm using Notepad++ software to create all my code, to write all my code. You can use any text editor you like. You can even use plain old Notepad. However, as you can see, this is the file I have saved as a .html file with the HTML extension. So when I write my code, I can see some color right here, the head tag, and as I write more, you'll see more color. So this color tag coloring is happening because I'm using Notepad++. Most text editors will provide this to you. However, simply using Notepad will not provide anything to you. So it's you're more likely to make a mistake using Notepad. So I'd recommend any text editor which can do the job. You can use that. And to run the code, you just have to open this file. You can either open it from the run menu or just go to the folder where the file is stored and right click and do open with Chrome. I recommend the Chrome browser because most of the effects and tags that we are using are going to work best over there. If you're using some other browser, you might have some issues later on. So it's best that you use Chrome. So this is the file open in Chrome. You can see this is the path right here. The only thing is that you cannot see anything here right now because there isn't anything here right now. Okay, because I haven't written any code yet. So once I write some code, then that code will be visible there in the file. So I'm going to go ahead and start now. Once again, because we're going to write HTML code, we will write the head section, and I'm going to give it a title, Simple Bar Chart with SVG and D3.js, and then close the title section. Next, I'm going to import the D3.js library. To do that, you just have to copy the link, and this is the link right here. This is the version 3 link. You can go to the d3.js.org website and get version 4 or 5 as well. So whatever you want, you can use that. However, some syntax might differ based on the version. So this is the source. You have to specify the source and the character set. And it's necessary that you have your laptop connected to an internet connection for this code to run, because this is the link that's going to be imported. So it's not available on your laptop, that's why. So once you have written your head tag, then we can move on to our body tag. Let's close that and close the HTML tag. So the body tag is essentially where most of the time your code goes. You can have a script tag in the head, you can have it in the body, it doesn't matter, but all your important information, like what exactly is going to be seen on the screen, is going to go into the body tag. So this is the body tag, and I'm going to just create another div over here with ID as chart because we are creating a chart. So this is basically just creating a partition or container of your HTML document, which you can later on style according to your need. So that's why I've created this. Whenever I want to access this, I'm going to use ID equal to chart as the ID. If I do that, I can access this container. So once that is ready, I'm going to now go ahead and start my script tags. So it's best to just write the closing tag as well so that you don't forget it. So the script tag is ready. Between this, my entire d3.js and JavaScript code is going to be there. So that's what I'm going to do now. Write my script. But before that, let me just show you what it looks like right now. So when I run it right now, it's not going to show anything. However, if you're running along, you will see that your title of this new tab in Chrome will now be simple bar chart with SVG and d3.js because that's what I have specified here as the title. Now let's move on to the script tag. So with the script, within the script tag, I am going to create an array first of all. So arrays are created by writing var for variable, then the name of the array, which is just a group of objects that you want to put together in a variable. So I'm just going to name it my data, and you can write any numbers that you want. So I'm going to specify some numbers. I want 43, I want 34, I want let's go with 1, 2, 4. Let's go with 1, 2, 3. Let's go with 31 and 6. Let's go with 31 and 3. Let's go with 63. So these are some of the numbers that I want to plot. So I've just written them here. And after you create a variable, you just put a semicolon to finish that line. I also want to create another variable called height to specify the height of my canvas, which is 500. I want to make it 500. I want to specify a width, also 500. I want to specify a bar width because we are creating a bar chart. It is necessary that you specify how wide you want one bar to be. So I want this bar to be 35, and there's also a bar offset. So what this does is puts some space between one bar and another bar. Okay, so it just basically tells you where to begin the next bar from. So that's why it's a bar offset. Next, we are going to create a variable called myChart, where we will be storing everything related to the chart, the styling, the attributes, everything, the data. Okay, so to do that, first of all, you're going to write down this is equal to d3.select. Now, after doing this, you're going to write here d3.select hash chart. Now, why you're doing hash chart? Because like I mentioned before, this is the ID of my div, the container that I created previously to display my chart and to style everything. Okay. So, oh, I made some changes there. So let me just hit Control Z. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is write down append, just like we did in the previous video when we created a rectangle and a circle. So you just have to do here append and mention over here SVG, because I want to use scalable vector graphics. So I have to append SVG. Once SVG is appended, then all I need to do is start adding all the attributes, the style and all that. So I'm going to add the first attribute as the width of the canvas that I'm going to be using. And notice here, the first one is the attribute itself, but the second one is the actual width, which I have defined here as a variable. So this width is actually equal to this variable. So it essentially means 500. You could put it directly as well if you'd like, without creating a variable. However, it's good practice to create a variable. Next, let's put the height. So height again is equal to this height variable. So this height variable is the same as this. So height is 500. Next, we are going to style it by using background. Okay, so I do want to give it a background. Okay, some color. I'm not going to put gray this time. I'll go with maybe a green color. Okay, let's not take green. Let's take yellow. So I'm going to go with a yellow color here and close this bracket. Okay. Next, I'm going to do select all. Okay. Now, In this case, what we want to do is, because bars are essentially rectangles with some specific width and height. So to create a bar, we are going to use rect. So that's why I'm writing over here rect. And now these rectangles have to be created based on this height. So the first one has to be 43, second one has to be 34, third one has to be 124, and so on. So these have to be of a certain height, which is why you need to write down here dot data to bind your data with whatever else you're going to be doing now. So your data is this my data variable that you have specified, and that's what you will specify here as well. Next, you are going to write the dot enter function and append this rectangle. So you have selected the rectangle, the data is bound with it. Now what you have to do is append it over here. And you're going to now add all the styles and attributes that you need for this bar chart to work. So first I'm going to write style, and I want to give it a fill color. So what should be the color of each bar? I want to give each bar a light green color. Okay. Next, I want to specify the width of each bar. So we're just going to do width, comma, okay, this comes in single quotes, width, comma, bar width variable right here because I have already defined it. So the width of each bar is going to be 35 as mentioned here in this variable. So bar width. Next, I'm going to specify height. So now height is slightly tricky because it's not constant. For every bar, there's a different height. And to create a height of in that way, you would have to use a function. And remember that JavaScript allows you to use function as a parameter or as an object. So we are going to pass the function here. And what is this function going to do? It's just going to return D. Now, what is D? I have explained that before. D is nothing but this data that we have bound here. So it's going to one by one return each and every value, each and every height present in this my data array. And we are going to close this curly bracket, and not just the curly bracket, but the round bracket as well, which we started after attribute. So that is closed as well. Let's add another attribute about X and Y axis, the positions of these rectangles. Okay, so let's have X axis, and we are going to make it a function. Now, X axis is the axis with which you're going to also attach an offset, because you don't want all the data very close to each other, all the bars very close. So, which is why you need to specify different sort of different positions. The value of X is not constant. For every bar, there is a new X value that you need to calculate. Okay. So what we will do here is create this function, and this time I'm going to use I. So not just the data, but the I, which is the index as well. Okay. So this is the index of the item that we are using, and we are going to do I star bar width plus bar offset. So this will ensure that all this data that we are trying to fit, all the bars that we are trying to fit are going to fit perfectly well. So this is done. And of course, we need to close this here as well. So we are going to close this curly bracket, round bracket. All right. Next, we are going to add the attribute for the y-axis. So how do we create a y-axis? We call the function with only the data as a parameter. And this time we are going to write down height minus d. This will take care. So every time you want the height, the original height is right here. Original height is 500. And to specify the height of the bar, you want it something out of 500, but you just want to subtract this. So if I do minus 43 out of 500, that would give me the actual height at which this y-axis should be plotted. So once this is done, close this bracket and put a semicolon because I have finished my variable chart. Whole function is created here. And that's it. We are ready to run. Remember to save before you run. Go to Chrome, hit refresh, and you can see this is my bar chart. I think the color is not very good. I would like to go and give it a blue color probably, or maybe change the background. That's all right. I'll just give it a blue color for the bars so that it stands out a bit. Okay, so this is a yellow background, blue color chart. Now what happens here is you can see there is this extra space here. Because I created a 500 by 500 canvas, so it created this big area of 500, 500, but it is not fully used because this is not scalable. What happens if I add a couple of more things inside, for example, 78, 54, 64, so okay, 95. So if I add more things inside and I'm going to just do this, then it's going to essentially fill that area. But if I'm not adding all these things, then there will always be some space that is left out. And if you end up adding things which are more than this area, then you would get into trouble. And you'd also get into trouble if you added something bigger. For example, now let me go back. Let's say I added something called 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's a big number compared to everything else here. Now let's refresh it and see. You can see it goes up here. But let me just replace one of these numbers. Okay, let me add another number. This time I'm going to add another number, let's say 734. And let's run that. Let's refresh. So you can see there are two problems here. One problem is that it's not going to show me anything beyond my 500 by 500 canvas. The second problem is that this bar is equal in height to the other one, but the other one is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 data point, whereas this one is 734 data point, and yet both of them have the same height because there is no scaling. Okay, there is no scaling involved. So anything beyond the 500 mark is going to just touch the bottommost area and you won't be able to tell what it is. Okay, so this is the issue with this type of a bar chart where there is no scaling, but you could apply scaling with just a simple, with just a couple of changes to your code. So I'm going to show you now how you can scale your data, how you can apply scaling to this. So let's come back here and let's remove some of the numbers from here we don't want. Afterwards, we can just add them and I can show you how scaling works. So this is as it is. You can keep the height and width, but the bar width and offset, I would recommend that you remove because this is going to be now scaled. So now we are going to create an X and Y scale variables. First, we will be creating the Y scale variable. And here I'm going to use again t3.scale function, and there is a linear scale function. There are actually many scale functions available. If you go online and check t3js.org, the link, you will see lots of options for scaling. I'm going to use the linear one. You don't have to really worry much about how that's working. If you want, you can go to this website and read the documentation, find out how each and everything is working. In this video, I'm not going to dwell a lot on how exactly this scaling works. So there are two things basically that you need to specify. One is the domain. Okay, so the domain is the data that you're going to use. So or sort of what kind of numbers are going to come. So in this case, the domain is going to be 0, okay, from 0 up to what number is this going to scale, okay, up to what number you want something on y-axis. So to do that, it would essentially be the highest number from this array. So you can use the d3.max function and just pass data to it, my data to it. Okay. And what this does is it takes care of your data, finds out the largest value from there and uses that as the domain value. So the domain goes from 0 to whatever largest data value you have. Next, you're going to write dot range to specify the range. Okay, the range is essentially 0 to height. Okay, this is the range that you want to scale in. Domain can be anything. You could have here 1000, 2000, anything in your my data, but you want to scale it up to this range. Okay, because your canvas is only from is only having a height from 0 to 500. So you have to scale everything that you have here within this 0 to 500 range. So that's why we are specifying the range. Now, in a similar way, we will be declaring x scale. Okay. So for x scale, again, we are going to call the d3.scale linear. Sorry, for this one, we are going to use ordinal. Once again, you can find out what this is all about. Okay. We're going to be using this ordinal. What we will write here is once again the domain. For domain, we are going to write d3.range from 0 up to my data.length. Because domain is, for x-axis, it's going to be everything starting from 0 to depending on how many data points you have. If you have 10, then you want all 10 to fit within this 500 by 500 canvas, right? So that's why. And we are going to also specify the range, which would be very simple. It's just 0 to 500 because that's my width. Sorry, I should write width, not 500 directly because I have a variable. So width is mentioned and close this bracket. So you can notice how we have created the range over here for this. Okay. Now I'm going to be using the range bands function for this instead of the range function, and it doesn't matter, however, but this is an option available, so I'm using that. And you can read the documentation and find out. Personally, I would recommend you don't dwell too much on how these things are working. Just understand that domain is what your data is, the range of your data, and range is the range of your canvas. So we need to specify the y scale and x scale, and we need to specify their domains and ranges. So once this is done, now I want to specify some colors as well. Okay. This is what I'm doing here. I'm going to write down variable colors because what I want is I don't want all my bars to be of the same color. I want them to have some shade. Maybe the first one's really light green, the second one's darker. So I want a shade. And to do that, I have to create this. So to create a color scale, you will be using the d3.scale.linear once again. Okay, linear scale. And here you will write down domain 0, comma, my data.length, how many colors you want. So you want colors starting from 0 up to my data.length. So if you have 10 values over here, it's going to generate 10 colors. So it's as simple as that. Then you need to specify the color range. So here we are going to use the range attribute again and specify the range. So I wanted some green, light, dark green, light green type thing. So I'm going to specify a light shade of green over here. So to do that, it is 90, double E 90. I've just taken this from some online tool. You can do that as well. Just search for, light green, dark green, and specify those colors right here, hexadecimal values. Okay, so this is right here done. Okay, so you can see this is the range. So this is essentially some light color. This is a dark green color, and it's going to generate 10 colors for me within this range to fit all my data. Okay, I do not have 10 values, I have 8 values, so it's going to generate eight colors. And if you do happen to add more data, it will generate colors based on that. Now to run this, to apply it here to the chart, you first of all have to remove this chart, my chart variable, and just do d3.select. Okay. And the changes that you're going to make will come here. I would like to change the background actually because yellow does not help with anything. I'm just going to give it a light blue background, hoping that that's going to work better. Okay, next we keep rectangle as it is. We keep my data as it is. We are going to append the rectangle and perform this fill. Now, for each rectangle, we want a different color, which is why we created this range. So the fill is not going to be as simple as fill equal to blue. We are going to specify certain a function that's going to get me different kinds of fill colors every time. So here, instead of this blue, you'll have the function. And the function will give two things, d and I, d for the data which we just bound, my data, and I for the index. So this function is going to do return colors in bracket I. Okay, so it's going to return each color for each index one by one. And let us also close this function with a semicolon. And okay, and the style tag is closed, so that's all right. Now for the width, this is the width of the rectangle, not the width of the canvas. The canvas width is here, canvas height is here, but this is the width of the rectangle. So to give the width of the rectangle, we are going to be using the function xScale, the variable that we created, okay? And we are going to use dot range band, which we saw earlier. So this is xScale, which we created here, which we are going to apply over here. Okay. Next we have height. So to do this, now earlier we just did function d return d. This is very simple. For height, all you are going to do is instead of return d, you're going to write down function, sorry, not function, but the y scale that we created. So y scale in bracket d. So you're going to return y scale d. Y scale is the variable you created here. So you're going to return y scale d, axis is taken care of here. Okay. Next, we have to worry about the positions of x and y, which means where will each bar be situated. Okay, this also has to be sort of dynamic. We don't want it to be static, that when I add more data, it's just going to, mess everything up. So to do that, we are going to stick with this function. There will be a slight change over here, which is we will specify x scale I. This will take care of what we want. And for the y-axis, for the y position or coordinate, we are going to just make this small change and specify y scale with d and save it. And then that's it. We are ready to run this code. So let's go back to, this is what my chart looked like before. Now I'm going to run this. You can see the change. Once again, you cannot really see this very properly because of my poor choice of colors. Okay, let me just go ahead and change this background to white. Okay, Now you can see it more clearly. You can keep the background, of course. I just want to show you how this looks. So you can see this is much lighter, this bar, but this bar over here is much darker compared to this. Okay. Also, you'll notice that if I add more values here, it's going to scale. So let me show you. Let me add a big value like 1, 2, 3, 4. Save it and let me show you. So you can see that it did not just touch the topmost portion. It actually created, it scaled the rest of the values. It made everything else smaller and this one bigger. So that way you can know that this is something much bigger. Okay. The other advantage is you can add as many things over here as you like. So let's go ahead and add some more values. Okay. Okay. And let's run that. You can see how it is fitting even more bars into this small 500 by 500 canvas which we created. So it's going to go on fitting. It's going to give me more color scales as well. Okay, I just specified 2 colors and it gave me so many colors, shades of the same color between that range, and it's scaling pretty well. So this is how you can create a simple bar chart using SVG and D3.js, and you can add scaling to it as well. In the next video, we are going to see how you can add some transitions and animations and some tool tips with your bar chart. So I'll see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.